Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk to you about one of the most damaging things in your PMDD relationship, and this is bitterness. So when you have bitterness within your PMDD relationships, it's normally because you've had months and months and months where you've had fights and arguments, and you've become bitter towards your partner over things that they have said and done. And now you're seeing this cyclical pattern of bitterness within your PMDD relationship. And the reason why this is so toxic for PMDD relationships specifically is because when you go into PMDD and you're experiencing that bitterness, or your partner is experiencing that bitterness, then it leads to resentment. And then that leads to the criticism, the defensiveness, and then the PMDD monthly breakups. So all of these are paired together. So whenever I have private sessions with my clients, and I notice that there's some bitterness going on, we have to immediately get rid of that bitterness before it starts to get you in that mindset that you're going to break up with your PMDD partner. And I know you may be thinking, oh, I'm upset because of this and I'm upset because of that, like no big deal. But bitterness is literally the pathway towards the PMDD monthly breakup. So this is why it's so important for me to get rid of it immediately, because it really impacts your relationships. And one of the main, ways that it impacts your relationship with your PMDD partner is there's no intimacy. When you're bitter with your partner because of something that they've said and done in the past, and you haven't really let it go, you haven't forgiven them, you haven't chosen to move forward, then there's no intimacy, there's no closeness. It's really hard for you to lean in and be loving, which is one of my most impactful tools. If you're still thinking about things that your partner has said, things that your partner has done that has hurt your feelings, that you're still kind of resentful for, there could be a lot of times where you handle the situation and you're looking back on it and you're like, I should have done this, I should have done that, right? You're wanting that kind of revenge, meaning you're arguing and you're fighting and you're like, I should have gone off on them, or I should have said, different things, because now you're in that mindset of remembering things that your partner has said and done. And sometimes you get bitter because you feel weak. You feel like they got over on you. You feel like they got the upper hand. And so now you're bitter and you're kind of thinking about ways that you can get them back, right? And this is a conscious and a subconscious thing, because when you've been hurt, that is what is creating this bitterness inside of you. When you've been hurt by something that your partner has said, even if they've apologized for it, every single time you think about it again, you could start to feel bitter all over again. And so when you have these fluctuations in your mood, then you can go from being completely calm, and then all of a sudden your partner do something that triggers that thing that you're bitter about. And then all of a sudden you're back in that same spiral again. You guys are arguing and you're fighting. It's because you've never really forgiven them for something that they've done within the PMDD relationship. And this is why addressing your issues with your partner is so important, instead of just brushing them over, because PMDD is going to rip the blanket off of anything that you're thinking about your partner. So if you've not forgiven your partner for something that they've said and done, PMDD is going to start to replay it in your mind again and again and again. And it's going to get you in that mindset of thinking maybe we're not compatible, maybe we shouldn't be together. So you really need to get rid of the bitterness because it's impacting your intimacy. You cannot be close, you cannot be loving, you cannot be affectionate, you can't meet your partner's needs if you're continuously bitter over something that they've said and done. And the way to get rid of the bitterness is very, it's very simple, but the process is strategic, meaning in order to get rid of the bitterness, you have to forgive your partner. And a lot of times you're thinking that you have to forgive them just one time. Well, when you have PMDD and it's cyclical and you have it for about 7 to 10 to 14 days, you have to continuously forgive your partner again and again and again. And I know you may be thinking, I've already forgiven them, but every single time that it triggers you, every single time that it bothers you, every single time PMDD brings it back up, you have to literally forgive them again. And you have to do it immediately, because once you let that bitterness get inside of you, your mood towards your partner, the way that you're presenting yourself, it can be nasty. When you're bitter with your partner over something that they've said and done, you can be downright nasty to them and you won't even feel bad about it. This is how you know that you're bitter, because you're not even feeling bad for being nasty, for being dismissive, for being, not affectionate, for being standoffish, for stonewalling them, which is shutting down on them. You're not going to be feeling remorse for being that way towards them because you're so bitter over what they did to you. You kind of feel like you're paying them back, right? This is a situation where your partner has said and done something that's below the belt. And now when you're bitter towards them, you're kind of feeling like, well, I could give them love, affection, attention, validation, all of these things that they're wanting. You know what they want, but you're just not wanting to give it to them. And you're feeling like they don't deserve to have it. They don't deserve to have those things that you can provide to them. Only you can provide to them because of something that they've done in the past. So the process of forgiving your PMDD partner is very humbling, right? Because you may be thinking to yourself, they don't deserve my forgiveness. I know what you're thinking. This is the ego. When you feel like that, when you genuinely feel like I could forgive them to get rid of this bitterness, but I don't think that they deserve it. I don't think they've paid for what they've said and done to me. I don't think that they've suffered the way that I suffered when they said and did whatever they did. And this is very circumstantial, meaning you can have specific circumstances that you're bitter with your partner about. And when I'm on private sessions, I have to literally go in depth of what the partner has said and done that's really hurt you. And we have to go through the process of forgiveness. And if that's something that you know that you need help with, if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, Dr. Rose, you don't know what they've said to me. You don't know what they've done to me. We need to get to the bottom of it and get rid of that bitterness, because it can literally poison your relationship, meaning you're not going to be able to move forward until you forgive your PMDD partner over this specific situation. Or it could be a series of situations where they're continuously doing things that trigger you and it's causing you to be bitter. And a lot of times the way that you're communicating it to your partner may not be in a way that is helpful to them not continuously triggering you. Meaning if you keep going off on them over something that they're doing that's triggering you, you're going to get bitter every single time that they do it again, or every single time that they don't do it. If you ask them to stop doing something, I got like this before in my relationship where I really didn't want my partner yelling at me. Yelling at me was a trigger for my childhood trauma. And I would continuously tell my partner that. And then when we would get into arguments, we would get into fights, they would raise their voice, they would start yelling at me. And I started to get really bitter because I was thinking about how much they were continuously triggering me, even though I had taken the time to explain why this thing that they're doing hurts me. It's like they continuously did it anyway. And so I got really bitter. And I remember having to get rid of that, because you will genuinely be nasty towards your partner and not even feel bad about it. And when you're in PMDD, it is absolutely going to exasperate your PMDD symptoms. So I know that you think the bitterness is just about your partner, it's just about how you're interacting with your partner, but it actually can make your symptoms be worse because you have that bitterness and that poison inside of you. So when you have that resentment and that rage inside of you, it causes you to have stress. It causes your cortisol levels to be heightened. So when you're in PMDD and you're feeling irritable and you're feeling moody and you're feeling all of these things, The bitterness is causing you to stay in that stress response for longer than you're supposed to. So now your PMDD symptoms that you already have of anxiety, of depression, of fatigue, of misophonia, which is that sensitivity to noise, the bitterness is just making it worse. So holding on to bitterness with your partner is making your PMDD symptoms worse. This is why it's so important that you process it and get rid of it. And you literally have to let it go. Let it go. If it's something that your partner is, if you're bitter because of something that your partner has said to you, and maybe they've criticized you and it's caused you to feel really, bitter towards them, you have to start to not let that criticism get inside of you if you know that that is causing you to be bitter. Like, this is what I have to do with my private clients. Get to the root of why you're bitter. What is it that your partner has said? What is it that your partner has done that is causing you to be bitter? Like, let's address that first. What is it that they are doing, or what is it that they're not doing that's causing you to be bitter? And if it's criticism, a mantra that I have had to use and I use a lot with my private clients is, if your partner says something about you, name calling or criticizes things that you're doing, says that you're not doing it right, you never feel like what you're doing is good enough, you have to get into that realm where you're detaching your emotions from what your partner says about you. And you have to say this mantra: I know who I am and I'm amazing. I know who I am and I'm amazing. And when you're saying that, you are detaching your emotional response to what it is that your partner is saying. I don't need my partner to know that I'm amazing in order for me to know that I'm amazing. The reason why a lot of times the criticisms cause you to be bitter is because you're believing a portion of what your partner is saying. And that's why you're bitter about it, because you feel like they're calling you out on an insecurity that you may have. If your partner says something to you that is out of line, meaning you're so selfish, or you're so manipulative, or you're a narcissist, or you're whatever your partner can say in the realm of when they're angry with you. If you don't really believe that about yourself, it's easier for you to let it go and not let that bitterness get inside of you. But if there's a part of you that believes that what they're criticizing you and what they're saying is true, then you're going to start to get bitter, because you're going to feel like they're calling you out on something that it may be something that you're actually working on. If your partner is calling you selfish, or saying that you don't really care about me, or you're not loving, or you're not this, and you feel insecure about that particular thing, you're going to get bitter at the fact that they're calling you out on an insecurity. And so the next way that bitterness can really, impact your PMDD relationship is it's going to lead to you getting into those cyclical fights. So when you have bitterness inside of you, it's literally in your heart. It's literally in your mind. It's ruminating in your brain. It means that you are continuously thinking about things that you and your partner have argued about in the past. You're thinking about the disagreements. Even if it's not relevant to what's going on right now, you're revisiting those old wounds. You're making it impossible to move forward. So that means you're going to continuously have fights, meaning you're going to be bringing up old things, even if it's not relevant to the present situation. I always use this example: if your partner's coming home and you ask them to get lemons from the store, and they don't bring you lemons from the store, right? And you get pissed off at them and say, you don't really care about me. You don't love me. You don't care about me. You're never thinking about me because you didn't bring home the lemons. It's not necessarily about them not bringing home the lemons. It's an example of something that they've done in the past that you've not forgiven them for. And now they're just showing you proof that they're still in that mindset where they're capable of doing it again. So this is where the bitterness can really impact you, because you're feeling like the thing that your partner did in the past to hurt you, that they haven't learned their lesson and they're probably going to do it again. So you get bitter and resentful because you start to feel like you're getting taken advantage of. You're not appreciated. They don't love you. They don't care about you. You deserve someone that's so much better than this. And PMDD will have that ruminating in your brain again and again and again. And so you'll end up in these cyclical fights, and you'll start to feel like maybe we just shouldn't be together. Just forget it. Like, just forget it, because you're feeling like you're never going to be able to get over the things that they've said and done to you, because you're bitter, because you're resentful. And the next way that bitterness really impacts your relationship is it destroys trust. You cannot truly trust your partner if you're bitter over something that they've said and done in the past. When you're holding on to those negative feelings, it's hard to trust your partner's intentions. You're going to start to look at them like the things that they're like, everything they're doing is malicious. They're trying to hurt you. They're making your PMDD symptoms worse. And you're not believing that they really love you. You're not believing that they care about you. You're not believing that they really want to be in the relationship. You don't trust them. And when the trust is broken, the reason why you know that the trust is broken in your relationship because of this bitterness is because you start to get suspicious about why they're even in the relationship. You're second guessing what they're saying to you. They may say, I love you, I care about you, I want to be with you. You're not believing them. So now you're going to start having doubts in your relationship about whether it's safe to be with you, whether I should even be emotionally vulnerable with you. Like maybe you're going to use it against me. If I'm emotionally, open with you and vulnerable about things, like maybe you're going to, use it against me, and then I'm going to be bitter about that again. So when you feel like you can't be emotionally open with your partner because of bitterness, you're going to start to withdraw from them. This is where the stonewalling can happen, where you're just shutting down, where you're there, but you're not really there, right? And so when you're in that realm of emotional withdrawal, you may feel like, what's the point? What's the point of even talking to my partner? Because the resentment has taken over. You don't see the point of even being close to your partner. You don't see the point of leaning in. So you're going to stop engaging with them emotionally. You're going to begin to be like roommates, where you're just talking to them about surface level things. One of the most beautiful things about being in a PMDD relationship is that you're intimate with your partner, and you cannot be intimate. Intimacy cannot exist with bitterness because you're not willing to be open. In order to be intimate, you have to let your guard down. You have to trust your partner. You have to trust their intentions. Trust that what it is that they're saying to you, the things that they're doing are for your best interest. They have your best interest. Not that they're with you because they're trying to gain something out of it. Like when you have bitterness in your heart and your mind about your partner, you're going to start to think that they are trying to get over on you, right? You're going to start to think that everything that they're saying and doing is to cause you to suffer even more. So this gets into the realm of blaming them. You're blaming them for things that they're doing because you're perceiving that they're doing negative things. The bitterness causes you to focus on your PMDD partner's flaws, their faults, their mistakes, their shortcomings, and then you start blaming them for your unhappiness. You're blaming them for the problems in the relationship. You're blaming them. And then guess what happens? You start blaming them, they get defensive, and then that's when you get into the PMDD monthly breakups. You're the reason I'm suffering. You make my PMDD symptoms worse. You. Blame and bitterness go hand in hand. Because you feel like you're suffering with this bitterness inside of you, you start blaming them and you start saying, I wouldn't feel this way if it wasn't for you. You're not focused on finding any solutions to your issues or your problems. You're kind of in that victim mentality, because bitterness puts you it traps you into the victim mentality where you feel powerless. You believe that your partner is really responsible for all of your emotional pain. You're feeling bitterness, and it doesn't feel good to you. It's a negative emotion, but you're blaming your partner for being in that mindset. You're the one that's causing me to suffer. You're not taking any steps to say, you know what, I have this bitterness inside of me and I need to forgive my partner, because that's genuinely what needs to happen. The only way to get rid of the bitterness is you have to drop the pride, drop the ego, and make a conscious choice to forgive. And again, when you're in PMDD, you're going to have to forgive your partner more than one time. Every time that it comes up in your mind, you have to forgive them. I'm choosing to let this go. This is a mantra that I use, and it really, really works because it's very simple. I am choosing to let this go because it's causing me to suffer. I am choosing to let this go because it's causing me to suffer. Get to a point where you don't allow bitterness to stick on you. So every single time it's starting to come up, you have to let it go. Forgive everything and let it go. You don't pick and choose what you're forgiving your partner for based off of what it is that they deserve. If you're in a relationship with your PMDD partner, which you are, they deserve your forgiveness, and vice versa. You're going to continuously have to forgive them because they're not perfect. They are not the perfect PMDD partner. There is no perfect PMDD partner. They're always going to say and do things that could potentially trigger you. But the way that you stop the cycle of fighting is to make a conscious choice to forgive. It doesn't matter what my partner says. It doesn't matter what my partner does. I'm choosing to forgive them and let it go because this bitterness is causing me to suffer. I want you to really understand that the bitterness is not just causing your partner to suffer because you're being nasty to them or you're shutting down on them. It's causing you to suffer as well. It's breaking down that level of communication that you're having with your partner. When you have bitterness, your communication with your partner is it's either short or it could be nasty, where you could be talking to them crazy. You could be talking to them in a disrespectful tone. You could be yelling at them because you're bitter. You're bitter and resentful over something that they've said and done, and you're talking to them like that bitterness is still inside of you. So this is where a lot of the hurtful words are exchanged. This is where the yelling and the cursing and the fighting, this is when it happens because you have that bitterness and it's coming out in your communication. What is inside of you is coming out. Only the hurtful words that are inside of you can only come out because that bitterness is in there. So the bitterness is inside of you. And when you communicate with your partner, that bitterness is showing up. And what I really want you to recognize is when you have the bitterness, it blocks you from forgiving your partner and healing and moving forward. You have to think about forgiveness is a way for you to move forward with your partner, to not have the same fights, to not have the same stress, to not have the same arguments again and again and again. Without forgiveness, you can't heal and move forward. You're going to stay stuck in the past if you still have this bitterness. So if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, Dr. Rose, I'm tired of the fights, I'm tired of the arguments, I wish that we could just move forward, then forgive. Bitterness makes it incredibly difficult for you to forgive your partner, even for minor mistakes. Because if you haven't forgiven your partner for the big things, then the little things that they're doing are just going to be, you're going to blow them out of proportion because of the bigger things that you haven't forgiven. So a lot of times your partner can feel like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm walking on eggshells. It's like I can't do anything right. You know, they're going after me for every little thing. Yeah, because they haven't forgiven the big things. And again, if this is something that you know that you need help with, go to unlovedwithpmdd.com, get those counseling sessions, because we have to get rid of the big things that you're bitter over in order for you to continuously forgive the small things. It's really good. It's going to be really, really hard for you to forgive the small mistakes that your partner makes on a daily basis. If you're still, like, if your partner cheated on you, if they were unfaithful to you and you decided to stay with them, and you find yourself bringing up, you know, little things that your partner is doing are really irritating you and really triggering you, it's not really about the little things that they're doing. It's because you never forgave the infidelity. If your partner cussed you out, if your partner called you a piece of crap, and maybe they said sorry, or maybe you said that you were over it, but now every single time that your partner is communicating with you, you're still feeling bitter about it because you haven't really forgiven them. You haven't gone through the process of forgiving them. And so over time, again, because this is cyclical, over time, not getting rid of that bitterness is going to poison your whole relationship. And you're going to start to think, what's the point of even being together? Because I can't seem to get past this thing that my partner has said. I can't seem to get past this thing that my partner has done. So without letting go of the bitterness, you're risking your relationship falling apart because you haven't let go of the past. The longer the bitterness lingers within your relationship, the harder it becomes to recover. It's harder to recover from something if you're letting it go for a long period of time. This is why I say get the sessions as soon as possible, because every little thing that they're doing is piling on top of that. Every little thing that your partner is doing is piling on top of those things that you need to forgive them for. So if this is something that you know that you need help with, and you're like, Dr. Rose, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of going through the same things again and again and again. Then get those counseling sessions, address the big things that you're still bitter with your partner and admit it. And I know this was hard for me, you know, earlier in my journey. I just had to say, I'm bitter with my partner. Self-awareness. I'm bitter with my partner. And once you're recognizing and admitting that you're bitter with your partner, then take the steps that you need to take in order to get rid of that bitterness and forgive them. And if that's something that you know that you need help with, unlovedwithpmdd.com, I'll see you next time. We got this. Love you. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to unloved.pmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.